So, we've talked a lot about bone breathing. We've talked a lot about harmonizing the different densities of tissue in the body. Bone is one. And how in the tuning of these different densities together, we land in a place where there's a resonant, melodic music-like expression, presence that we embody. So in this moment, tuning into which is the tone. Imagine chords, right? There's one note coming from the bone. There may be several because probably parts of our skeleton are not quite harmonized yet, and there's a layer in which the bone, there's a layer of frequency coming from that denser place. And then maybe next level, maybe we have a perception of that densest membranous layer, the dura and the periosteum, slightly different. And then a sense of the softer tissues, the muscles, the tendons, the investing fascia. Many, many different tiny notes coming from that layer. And then the fluid space. I mean, there's so much overlap, right? There's fluid, there are water molecules, lymph, fat cells. There's so much fluid in bone. It's almost like the fiber, like the way the dura invests in the bone through the periosteum. It's like the fluids penetrate, everywhere really. And then we're noticing that fluid layer. And then simply in the holding of it all, in our, it's like a reception energy. That's it. Willingness to receive whatever was wanting to be told to us through this noticing. And we begin to be beyond mind. And like, how would you even describe such a thing? Is there even an importance to doing so? Yielding really in this moment to being dissolved and harmonized across all of it, such that distinctions may be not very relevant in this moment. Allowing your midline, your spine, your chakra tree to reach through the crown toward the sky like a stalk of seaweed on the bottom of the ocean seeking the sun. And we're really a kelp forest. That's why I use that image. We're a whole forest of fluid beings rooted deeply into the earth. You can imagine, I think physically the roots of kelp are not very deep, and energetically we can connect all the way to the center of the earth and activate the power of those roots to express so much more strength simply by imagining them being this deeply, powerfully expressed grounding circuit all the way down to the core of the earth, because energetically we do have access to that at all times. And noticing as you yield to receiving that expanded connection to the earth, what, as you bring your attention broad again, how is this being registered in your physical self? I'm only naming that because I felt something start to shift. It's oftentimes my tailbone, right, from my prior. So many significant patterns and lessons coming through that particular place for me. And in your system, in your body, in this moment, noticing what you're noticing. So here we are in oceanic space, in a sense, and attuning still, right, to this denser layer, dura, bone, that although harmonized, represents the ground that we carry within our skin, right? We're microcosms of the planet. Our bodies are the same ratio of water to land mass, 60, depending on the source you read, 60 some percent, 70% water. And then we also contain the same ratios of fresh water to salt water. Our blood volume, obviously, much larger than the freshwater source of the cerebrospinal fluid. The same proportion of freshwater to salt water as the earth. So in a sense, and this is as we drop into this harmonizing between the layers, when the coherence, when the resonance state in the body arrives in this place where the frequencies expressed by each tissue layer are matched, they're not the same, they're harmonized to one another, and then we experience this harmonious state of integration, resonance between the energies, energy body and the physical body, which become the idea that they're distinct from one another is a construct. That's not, it's a continuum, right? There's actually nothing actually solid. Our perception of solidity we call the physical body. Ooh. In this moment, I'm naming a sense of a dissolving of maybe some of the unconscious attachment to the idea that we're solid, something dissolving at the periphery of my awareness in this moment regarding the idea of bodies being solid. How is dissolving registering in your system in this moment? Sometimes it feels amazing. Sometimes it feels like a surrendering that's almost too much to give. Oh, can I release this much? Can I surrender this much? Can I hold whatever emotions come up around that experience? With kindness and almost adoration, right? What would it be like if you took what you thought were deficit responses or weaknesses or limitations and loved yourself particularly for those loving ourselves for our quirks, our eccentricities, our perceived deficits. What if all of those things we struggle with are exactly why we're so lovable? So, this idea of the body carrying the earth, we carry the ground within us. The ground, the bones being, if we name the earth the feminine, right? The feminine pole, the yin pole, the bones in our playful imagination can represent the ground that we carry within us. And that integration between the subtle, more ethereal, more spirit aspect possibly could be named that. The yang pole, the receiving from the higher realm, and then the integration of those two in the body to becoming one is really what dropping in and coming into present time and space and wholeness and connection with our full true self is really what we do when we do our practices, right? We become more into belonging and wholeness and connection with all that is, with infinite awareness, infinite stillness at once. And it's like this union of fluids and bone. That is really the definition of osteopathy to me, right? Andrew Taylor Still, founder of osteopathy, way back in the mid-1800s, naming the watering of the withering fields as the fluids activate and saturate, expand, hydrate the aspects of ourself and busy with the illusion of solidity. He also named the artery reigns supreme in his speaking of how the circulations of the body, not naming specifically the life force circulation, and I believe that's what he meant, coming into one, being one with the denser aspects of our structure. Something very, very rich about that. I'm feeling, as I'm tuning in to the imagined different radio signals coming from the different viscosities in the body, and expanding of, and it's like in my mind's eye, the bone layers becoming more like a thick, has an oozing substance quality. It's quite dense and it's quite homogeneous and elegantly expressing like a morphing quality, almost like a amoebic gel-like, very integrated, blended fullness. So I'm getting very specific now. What I'm naming is the endpoint, the beginning of coming into this resonant state is when the much more accessible waveform in the fluid body that's always there is actually held and archived in the bone, and it becomes one. The song of the frequencies expressed in the body, all the different viscosities expressing their different notes, becomes anchored in this thick, viscous, very sturdy, stable earth earth associated, right? Ground, the ground. And then we're going to hold, right? We're going to be able to hold this setting because it's archived in the bony layer, into it's a union with the power of the ground of the entire earth planet. It's like becoming one with the earth. It's like becoming an extension resonantly of this massive planet that's sitting there, that we're sitting on at all times, that is always present with fairly limitless ability to support us and also infuse us with deeply nourishing and healing and calming energy. Right there, there's actually a frequency to earth energy. And I'm feeling it coming through with this freedom. Like, oh yes, we recognize you and now we can receive you more fully. And there's an ease about it as well. There's like, oh, that's not so incompatible or so at odds with who I am, who we are in this moment. This feels natural. This becoming one with fully receiving of this nourishing earth energy. And if you remember back to our work with our play, our receiving of the remembrance of our running bear and the way the Native Americans would practice the maintaining of this open channel of receiving of this yin pole river. And that as we are now open fully to receiving, how the energies coming in from the higher realm and our higher self through the crown of the head meet with this receiving of earth energy in the center of the body. So this idea of the sun above, the receiving of this golden energy through the crown, and the buoyancy coming in as these energies combine and expand that serve to do the work of being in a body, and they are quite literally capable of expanding and creating buoyancy in our system so that we perceive that we weigh less. And scientifically we name piezoelectric effect, the infusion of expanded energies into the denser layers, becoming one with the denser layers, creating expansion, buoyancy, and the perception of weightlessness. Now imagine this behavior, this natural way of being, registering in your tissues a little more deeply in this moment. A deeper download, deeper intention to allow this level of support to express itself in each cell in your body, in all of your moments. In an hour from now, when you're sitting at your desk and you're on your phone or whatever you are, tuning into, can I recall, can I still touch into the sensation of this whole sea of energies combining and expressing and inflating and expanding and hydrating every cell in my body. Oh. And in the naming of that excitement about 1 hour from now, I felt a whole expansion in the lower part of the field, and more of a dropping in, a fullness coming in, to the often underoccupied lower parts of ourselves. Right there. Ooh. I'm giving a little bit more time, a little bit of time for this receiving, and then it's an infusion to continue to. It's like the cells are like vacuums pulling it in. And the deeper registering of the deeper experience, right? The deepening of what we call this neutral embodiment state. Fully integrated, coherent, resonant state, deepening all the time beyond the moments that we spend with intentional practice. Every moment of the day is a practice. Every moment of the day we can drop into this. It's like it's a channel that's running, right? There are multiple channels running simultaneously. And having tended or activated this one, we're not starting from scratch. In an hour we'll come back, or maybe in each moment from now forward you'll have a sense of connection to this awareness of this state operating in the background at all times. Which is a receiving behavior. It's a hydrating behavior that will disallow you. That's an interesting word. Disallow the withering fields to dominate the landscape of your being, right? And therefore you may not need to be resuscitated by someone else, or perhaps the encounters that you seek will be about digging deeper, right? As opposed to being resuscitated from flatness because we weren't necessarily noticing how we could be hydrating in every moment. It's just about noticing. It's so not complicated. It's just not complicated. And this is our natural way of being, right? Nothing even remotely new happening here. You're born an expert in everything I'm saying, everything we're naming, everything we're experiencing in this moment. So interesting, right? In the context of the bones representing the ground and the feminine in our systems, in our being, in our awareness, in our consciousness, and then the naming of osteopathy makes a lot more sense to me. It's like, wait a minute, it's all about the fluids. Oh, wait a minute, the bones are fluid. Oh, wait a minute. We're talking about fluid. We're talking about consciousness when we use the term osteopathy. That's my story. Noticing in this moment how your bones are participating in this entire symphony of life, expressing itself through you, the connectedness of all of the parts of you to infinite space, the oneness of your being with all that is, so that at every moment of this day and days moving forward, you're actually logged on to an infinite well of intelligence and power and healing and expanding of hearts and embodying of joy and of the possibility of being a vehicle for transmission of all of this to the rest of the planet. Every moment of the day, and an equal receiving in the giving and in a sense, the highest form of activism one could perform, one could offer up of ourselves. The radiating of our full being, the modeling of full willingness to receive this level of belonging and willingness to be gentle, generous reminder of this place. It's like offering sanctuary to every being, including yourself. I will tell you, I have had some very humbling awarenesses of my own persisting challenge with receiving. It's a very, very big thing. Very, very big. And any perception of this challenging edge, simply to be welcomed into, regarded, honored, witnessed, and welcomed to be one with, right? All of our parts we receive and welcome all of our parts. Remember our speaking about how the whole, the emerging belonging and connectedness, welcoming in and receiving all of the lost parts, whether they be an aspect of self, an aspect of, we talk about fragments of our soul, or simply dissociated physical parts like a shoulder or an ankle, or we welcome them all in to be once again held in belonging, once again to participating in the full dissolving into the oneness. I would say origin and source. Becoming one with origin and source. We were actually never gone, but our perception of separation. Dissolving of the perception of separation. Now, this is what just came in. This is so fun. Okay, so in this moment, right, in that deep inner place where we began with this perception of this dural sleeve containing the central nervous system, connecting, interfacing the bony layer with the tissue and the fluid layers. My inquiry for you in this moment, and there's no answer, is a bringing of our attention to our perception of the expression, the frequency emanating from the dura, the tone from the note of the dura, where we began, compared to our perception of it in this moment. These words may sound very vague. Your mind does not need to understand. It's an opening of your curiosity and awareness to imagine, like, what is this dura? What is this dura? Does it mean anything to me? my sense in this moment is about 3 minutes ago. Maybe when this sense of actually what I perceived as the disappearance of the sense of the Dura as is separate. Remember all the layers as they harmonize, become invisible. So my perception, I have this very thready residual perception of the Dura as a distinct layer. I'm sensing the oneness and coherence and harmony of all of the different notes coming from the different viscosities. It's really powerful, right? Then we begin to express a very coherent, powerful signal. All the waveform. Synchronizing, coupling, and if you really looked at, that is how power comes in, how our signals, how the resonant state that we hold in our bodies becomes a very powerfully expressed signal that then begins to be very protective of our systems. We're so radiant, we actually can't be penetrated by aberrant waveform, right? We neutralize it on contact, whether it be a negative thought or a toxic frequency, even a pollutant. And so we become very powerfully protected by powerfully expressed harmony of self. The harmonics have our entrained wave expressions, waveform from each previously less synchronized layer. Now harmonized, now powerfully expressed, a signal that is not so easily distorted from either internal or external sources. Our own limiting beliefs and negative thoughts can become powerful distortions of this, of the expression of our power and the coherence of our power, and as well influences from without. So knowing in this moment the power that you embody, the power that you have access to at all times, and our practice simply being the remembering of and giving of permissions to receive and embody. This is so much, on a soul level, almost what I'm talking about. And then what we're practicing is actually activating the cell memory of this embodiment. Right? We're born with it. It goes dormant. In the practicing of it together, we are encouraging, and it's like a workout of the circuitry and the skill of holding the intelligence, power of what we're talking about, right? We're actually growing our ability neuroplastically, cultivating our being, the potential of our being to embody our original state. Yeah, collectively exercising and expanding. And I think this is why these sessions are not tiring for me at all. I'm not doing this, right? We're collectively receiving, and I'm a narrator of what I see. You're a narrator of what you see. I believe we're supporting each other in the courage of receiving of this. I don't think I could do it in a vacuum for myself. In fact, I know I can't. It's not the same. So I would not say we're done, because we're beginning now. We're beginning to be able to sing ourselves into the world, sing ourselves free and open and healed in every moment. Now we're attuned musical instruments, we're attuned life force, lungs, engines. Now we get to practice being out in the world like a high performance vehicle, real sparkly. And so that was a lot, and we could surely, I'm seeing like a floating and a basking in the, like just the suit, the bath of it. And I also want to open up now for anyone who has something that came through that wants to be shared, to just unmic and share.
I'll share. I'm feeling much more whole than when I first arrived, and much more ability to source from within. Similar to the share earlier, I came in with erratic energy. Also from someone Michelle knows outside of this container, which is very funny. And I just now feel a lot more of Joel. Joel's pieces were elsewhere working its magic, but when it's elsewhere, it's not within me. And I'm a big fan of having all of me within me as much as I can, to be able to be a high performance human. So in particular, I just want to mention your language is really on point. It's really beautiful because it allows me to remember the importance of language, the importance of words, the importance of linguistics. And often in my current reality, in those I see on a face-to-face basis, that is, I don't want to say lacking, but it's not up to the quote standards that I hold myself to. And it's just really powerful and beautiful to be in a container where the person leading this is using language and curiosity and empowering words coming from where you source from. And it's very nourishing and helpful for bringing back all of me that I know is available. So thank you.
So good, thank you. So interesting. I also came in pretty erratic today, and a lot of times that's a lot of power that's simply not being stabilized or harnessed, right? And this whole concept of, oh, we've got this whole, but then we actually get into where we can anchor all of that in the bone and harness it to, people think of meditation as, oh, I'm going to slow down, and oh no, you're going to come into focus and have a limitless amount of power to wield consciously and with elegance. So it doesn't feel, it's not scary, because it's so, like power. It doesn't feel unwieldy. It feels like so much like, oh, I have something to fuel this thing, which is the missing thing, Joel, that I'm grabbing, is that our souls are fed by service. How does service, firstly, this is our deepest nourishment, is what we give to others, right? So really being willing to completely receive the entirety of who we are, and integral with all that is, a limitless amount of power and intelligence available to fuel this beautiful existence of service, right? That's what our souls are. That's what feeds us and heals us most. And I'm feeling very emotional in this moment. I'm just so grateful for all of you who are here. I'm imagining, because you understand what I'm saying. You're here because your heart wants to participate fully in this life in this generous way with each other. Wow. This is a beautiful quality of the space right now. And then it keeps evolving, right? So this is actually conditioning of our systems to register higher and higher, more rarefied frequency states. Your higher levels of originality. I'm going to just keep going back to what Joel said about our being us, right? Okay, anyone else wanting to share anything?
I can say a word of appreciation. The naming of things was just so matching that it's like I thought I was having an experience, and then it's like, oh, you're naming the very thing. The most powerful feeling and expression of that was when you named the Dura as viscosity, because I had just been like, wow, I'm like floating in the coolest mud bath ever. And then you said that, so I was like, whoa. And I didn't have to leave there. I could just stay there.
Thank you.
Super.
Well, for me, this is not vague woo-woo stuff. I'm naming what's happening. We feel all this stuff, right? I mean, I didn't start out feeling any of it. I was a total brick. I failed all my early sensing classes because my trauma history, and I guess that's just the arc that my being chose for learning. I don't really, right? But I was terrible at it. But I'm talking about, these capacities for sensing and attuning to nuance that are that's how we found food and knew what the weather was doing and where the predators were in primitive times. I mean, it's very literal, it's very actual, and I find the naming of the specificity of the naming to bring the conscious mind and the intellectual mind and the integration of the thinking mind into the sensing being. Right? That's wholeness. We don't have to get rid of the intellect. We integrate the intellect in the body. And then the body drives the intellect, and then we're geniuses that aren't going to mess up the planet because we know better. Thank you so much for being here. Today was a little bit extra deep and special. If you weren't able to share, as I'm feeling a closure experience in this moment, please reach out to me or send me a note or share in the group an experience.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.